The most mysterious character in Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 is the voice from the phone who introduces himself as Ollie. Throughout Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, Ollie helps us in every way possible to find the items we need. We still don't know who he was and why we don't hear him anymore after Catnap's death. Hello everyone, and I would like to say that Ollie came into our lives very suddenly through a phone call, but can we trust the voice on the other side of the wire? Is he really our Ollie? There are a lot of questions, and in this video we will try to get answers to all of them. So far this character has not been revealed to us, and all we can know about him is his name. And of course we heard his voice. Maybe Ollie is a really positive character, but are you sure that we talked to him? Who is Ollie? The release of the third chapter was a month ago, but there are still a lot of theories surrounding this game and its characters, and our Ollie is no exception. And of course the most attentive and enthusiastic players have already come up with a few theories about Ollie, including that we already know him and that he is the already known enemy prototype. It would be interesting to see how at the end we meet Ollie in one of the rooms, but suddenly a mechanical arm grows out of his body and we learn that Ollie is actually prototype. At the beginning of our conversation with him, we learn that he is well acquainted with Poppy herself. Even Poppy herself speaks of him as a positive character and convinces us that he can be trusted. And in practice this is really true because he helps us, tells us where the objects are, tells us where to go next, who to avoid, and so on. According to Ollie and Poppy, all these monsters need us to stop the most important evil, prototype. However, we know that all these monsters are guided by very strange thoughts. For example, Poppy herself many times talked about revenge to all the monsters who bullied them. But at the same time, Ollie never said anything about revenge. In fact, it turns out that some monsters use us to fight other monsters. And in this case, we are just pawns in the hands of these monsters, and our main goal is to help these poor monsters and at the same time to save our lives and get out. I didn't see any intrigue within Playtime, and even at the beginning of the second chapter, Poppy wanted to help us get out of this interesting place, but apparently she needs us for something more. Of course, I would like to just send everyone to hell and try to escape myself, but on the other hand, we are already trapped, and to survive and get out of here, we have to follow the instructions of the other monsters. At least that's the tactic we have at the moment. How it all turns out in the end, we will know only in the future. But unlike Poppy, Ollie no longer seems so strange and incomprehensible. At least he doesn't change his mood at the snap of his fingers, and he has some credibility. He always tells us only useful things, and in general, Ollie is a very nice guy, and thanks to him, we at least understand our final goal, to defeat the main villain prototype. Is Ollie a human or a monster? It's a very interesting question that definitely deserves attention. Ollie himself does not admit who he really is, but we can already make the assumption that he is 99% human. Ollie is the last remaining person, or should I say the last surviving child in the orphanage who found some safe place, and from there he contacts us using a phone that was created for Playtime employees. And I wonder how he knew we were at the orphanage, because at the beginning he told us that he could see that we were confused. But how could he know that about us, and how could he even know that there was anyone in the shelter? Of course there's a possibility that he's watching us with video cameras, and when I first saw them, I was at a loss. But after a while, I calmed down because I realized that thanks to them we are being watched not by some horrible creature or prototype, but by our goody Ollie. And there are cameras all over the orphanage. But why are we so sure that Ollie is watching us, and what are the arguments in favor of this version? Why can't Ollie be a monster, and how does he know Poppy? I'm pretty sure that Ollie is a doll like Poppy, or any other toy that comes to life. A monster in a word. Either way, we realize he knows this place very well, and you can say monsters can't know the orphanage area perfectly. But you have to realize that they've taken over this place a long time ago, and I'm sure they've studied every square millimeter of this creepy area. It is unlikely that Ollie is a former employee of Playtime, because if it were so, the protagonist would recognize his former colleague and at least introduce himself to him, but we didn't see it. But apparently the protagonist learns about Ollie's existence for the first time in his life. And remember Miss Delight's words where she wonders if we're the only surviving Playtime employee. Which means that Ollie could very well be a monster because we're the only survivors of this horrible place, and that's not just saying that, it's saying that Ollie could very well be a monster. Or Miss Delight just doesn't know there are orphan survivors at the orphanage. Ollie could very well be hiding and showing no signs of existence. But then there's the question of what he was eating and how long he was hiding. And yet there are arguments in favor of the fact that Ollie is not a monster or the result of an experiment, but just an ordinary child who managed to survive after all the horror that happened. Ollie we meet only in Playcare, and if he has been here for a long time, he would have explored this location, and if he was a monster, he would probably have moved on. Based on all of the above, I can't say for sure who Ollie really is, but I'm more inclined to believe that he is a human. Write your opinion about this question in the comments. What if Ollie isn't human, but he's not a monster? What if Ollie is the prototype? Back to the fact that Poppy knows who is hiding under the name Ollie, and we also know that the prototype helped orphans get out of the orphanage with the help of Theodore, who will become Catnap in the future. Also, the prototype can change voices, and he could probably hear someone's voice and memorize it. Also very strange is the fact that after the prototype destroyed Catnap, Ollie stopped contacting us. There are a few oddities in the prototype's behavior. If his ultimate goal was the death of Catnap, why could not it be done in the beginning? If Catnap completely trusts him, and even it is possible to tell that considers it the god, then why it was so long to wait? And why it was necessary to destroy Catnap at all if he is a very strong assistant and thus completely trusted the prototype? And why did the prototype even decide to help us? Even with more and more attempts to reveal the prototype as a character, we still don't know anything about him. I don't understand how that can be. Even in Chapter 3, the prototype is just a giant mechanical arm. His identity or his motives are still mystery number 1 to us in Poppy Playtime. Even the scientists themselves admit that the prototype holds some valuable information, but unfortunately, they don't tell us what they mean. Perhaps they mean its intelligence because the prototype, even when locked up, was able to create a laser pointer to escape. The prototype can manipulate people, and that's a fact. At least Theodore's story gives us a sense of that. Perhaps the prototype was able to manipulate the monsters, and as a result they went berserk, and under all the chaos, the prototype was able to escape. Which means he could have manipulated many others to carry out his plan. But we don't know what it's all about yet. But I'm sure that we are the missing piece of the puzzle that the prototype needed to carry out his plan. And that's why the prototype can help us get further and further away. As we move further into the orphanage, we destroy more and more monsters, which after their death are likely to go to our prototype. But in this case, why he needs us if we can safely say that his power is really amazing and he can cope with absolutely any monster alone. And why, for example, in the second chapter, he did not appear before us and did not tell us everything. Perhaps to carry out his plan, he needs everything to go smoothly and quietly, and he would be like a mere observer who would in no way want all the monsters to die. I think the prototype realizes that he can't do everything quickly and correctly if everyone knows that he's the one responsible for all the horror at Playtime. And that's why he remembered the voice of one of the orphans he helped escape and decided to brazenly steal his voice. And in this case, no one would recognize him, and he would manage to deceive not only the main character, but also the Poppy doll itself, so that there would be no unnecessary questions about whether to trust this strange hand. Of course you shouldn't. And that's why the prototype decided to pretend to be someone to steer the protagonist in the right direction and to mislead Poppy herself while remaining in the shadows. I think it's a very ingenious decision. I think it will continue until the final preparations for the prototype's plan are in place. And what his plan is, I think we'll find out in Chapter 4, or at least I'd like to believe so. And if you look at it from this side, we can safely say that the theory that Ollie is a prototype has the right to exist and would be a very interesting plot twist. What do you think Ollie really is? A human? A monster? A living toy? Or is Ollie our ultimate prototype enemy? I look forward to hearing what you think in the comments. Well, I'm going to wrap up this video. I wish you to experience maximum pleasure from this beautiful game and stay on the channel because this is just the beginning, and see you in new videos that will appear every 2 days without delay.